starting trouble तो है हमेशा. हाँ, I'll start with my own story. My parents were teachers, so I did not like my home, because they turned my home into a school. I never enjoyed schools anyway, so father being a strict teacher, it was difficult at home also. So the initial phase was of a lot of struggle, and but you continue like everybody else. I also did engineering from here only, Bhopal, Manit. और luckily third year में मेरे को expel किया. और that time was fantastic. Of course, that time it was very difficult because I didn't know how to do. But when I look back, I think that was the best thing that happened to my life, because I began to wonder about what nonsense are we doing in the name of education. Not one person is interested in learning, not one person. Everybody out of some other compulsion is doing this, and this is true of teachers also. It's not that only students. Teachers are also same boat. Hardly you ever meet anybody who is committed to learning. Learning is not what we are doing. We are just in the name of education we are just doing some nonsense. The whole thing is that we are only creating clones, intellectual parasites, who are only copying what the West is doing. All education, So it's absolutely meaningless activity people are involved in. People are very happy to be slaves from 9 to 5 and doing things that they don't like to do, somehow adjusting life. And evening they have one slot called entertainment, which is also terrible because that they only learn basically from there they become more and more consumers, what to buy next. So this tragedy is something that I find that nobody is willing to explore, and the biggest victims of what is happening are children. The most misunderstood aspect of today's life is children, learning process and knowledge. Three things absolutely people are unaware of. Because see, have you any time wondered about what is knowledge creation? Who creates knowledge? All are educated, no? But how many of you ever thought about what is knowledge? How does it get created? Are we here only to analyze somebody's information? Is that what education is? Is that what knowledge is all about? Yeah. So when I was expelled, and I was actually thinking of many of these things, and luckily I had a friend who was a professor here who had a school. There's a school here, used to be, I don't know, that name is not here, Supreme Public School बोल के एक school है भोपाल में, उस समय थे. So I used to teach, I went and taught in that school for a year, basically to get a fresh exposure to children, because then my paradigm is different, no? I want to know what is this happening here, no? So, but I didn't, somehow manage because I was not very comfortable with what was happening. But I then joined back, college joined किया. And but by then I took 2-3 very important decisions. Number one is that I will never do 9 to 5 job, and second decision is that I will not do anything that I don't like to do. That is a very important decision. And of course I passed. I had some 80% copy किया काफी सारा, तो 80% या कुछ तो मिल गया था. वो तो ऐसे ही पेपर था because I knew that I am not going to use this, luckily, and then and I didn't know what to do. So this is very important that when you are very clear that you don't like to do this, don't keep on compromising. Then life will not open a new door. If you realize that no, this doesn't work for me, stop it, and then something will happen. That is very clear. It may take time, So I didn't know what to do. So after I passed out, then I heard about NID, design education, but I had no idea what it was. But basically I took up post-graduation only because next 3 years I don't have to look for a job. And student life is as good as, a stipend है 3 साल का, you don't have to really worry. So I thought 3 years I don't have to worry now. That's the reason why, first reason why I took up design. But when I went there, the story changed. I found that first time I encountered a place where people are really interested in learning, first time. And I found, that I call as the learning paradigm. Till then, what we all encounter is teaching paradigm. The ready-made knowledge given to you, without question you analyze, and then you hype yourself to tell that you are educated. You only are remembering somebody else's word, that's all. There is no other value that you have added, But you claim that you are educated because that stamp is given to you, and nobody ever questions this, So that was a very, very interesting situation at NID. So I began to, more than becoming a designer, my interest began to be on what is the software of learning. How does a space, I looked at various aspects of that, what is the ambience, because there was no teaching at all, nobody was teaching. All teachers, so-called teachers, were all interested in something. You go to anybody's cabin, they are doing something, yeah. They are interested, So you could see an excitement in that place. And every student you meet, you will ask, what are you exploring these days? MSCT में तो चलता है कि कौन सी मूवी चलना है यार, क्योंकि एजुकेशन के बारे में कभी हम बात ही नहीं किया. Never. Every other time we are talking about Amitabh Bachchan and Rekha and somebody like that, no? Nothing else. You all know, this is what happening in all education, somewhat. Architecture is slightly different. Architecture is, because initially I thought it is because of girls, 50% girls and 50% boys. So I thought maybe that is the interest, but it is not so. Because there are certain fundamental paradigms that you can understand that enable learning. And that most important thing is experience. Understand? If you are engaging with experience, see, experience means you are present. When you are engaging with language, you are absent. Experience means you are present as a whole, your body, mind, everything. That's a very, whereas the moment you are engaging with language and text, mind, language, you are absent. You are engaging with mind, So NID was fantastic. Those 3 years I explored many things. I also found that of course NID also does certain damages. That's primarily because the paradigm that is taken is West. So your aesthetic sensibility is Western. Okay, which is a very core thing. You see, what is culture? Have you ever thought about what is culture? There are 3 aspects of culture, which you can see as these 3 fundamental questions: what, why, how. This is what defines a culture. Knowledge. What knowledge do you live with? Knowledge, sense of beauty, value. There are 3 things that delineate a culture. When you say Indian culture, what does it mean? Indian culture is a nonsensical term. There is nothing called Indian culture. There are only contextual cultures. A context is what creates. Of course, there can be a general idea of India, but I still don't think you can call it culture. Culture is something that is more precise, in sense of what is the knowledge there, what is the language that is being used there, and what is the, aesthetic sensibilities, what are the values and the value comes from actually the land. How do you live? That's a fundamental value is based on sustainability, on life, on living. How do you live? Not the nonsense, UNESCO nonsense. They don't know what culture is. Westerners don't know what culture is because they are completely out of culture. See, culture basically means you have to create knowledge. Without creation of knowledge, there is no meaning of culture. Culture doesn't mean you're living on past culture. That's another notion that people have to, See, it's like this. Every biological being, every living being is creating knowledge and living. Do you have any doubt about that? This creates, everything creates knowledge. Without that, it cannot survive. It's very clear. Except educated human beings, everybody is involved in creating life, creating knowledge. But we seem to think that only we know knowledge, only we have. This is the trap that we are in. Okay, so began to ask, so it was a very, very interesting self-exploration. As I was engaging with the outer world and trying to find out what is happening, it was also an internal exploration that was happening. Because ultimately it's not information that is going to change me. It's a much more a deeper kind of a thing that will change me, And it has to be like a madman, You can't be casually thinking about it. It doesn't happen. It has to be a very involved kind of, engagement. Of course, I created a lot of problem at NID. They also tried to throw me out because deeper questions are not allowed anywhere. that is a problem. You ask questions and they are so then of course I started living with rural tribal people. Craft began to interest me, handicraft, and I began to live with with rural tribal people. And one very important thing that I realized while living there was that literates learn the word, illiterates learn the world. Understand? And we call them unpad. We call them idiots. That's the way we treat them. It's exactly opposite. Most uncreative people are educated. This is actually the fact. Don't take it in the negative way. If you're open, and you don't have to believe one word I say. This is very clear. Don't believe one word I say. I will point out certain things and then you begin to explore that and realize by the self that is there any sense that I'm making. You don't have to agree with me at all.